Well, okay, here goes story number two. And once again, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you right where it happened on Google Earth, but this was quite a few years ago. But let's dive right into this, and I think you'll really get a kick out of this because it's really pretty funny. This is in central North Dakota, and this is all Army Corps of Engineers land. It's all public hunting land. I took my friend Ron with me on this hunt, and Ron's just been a great fishing buddy and so forth. And this was the first time he'd ever been on an out of, no, this was the second time. I took him to Missouri before this. This was the second time he'd ever been on a out of state hunt. We'd scouted this area out pretty good, and this field right here was planted in last year's corn. This is a food plot, and it was pretty beat down and everything because the corn was from the previous year, but the deer were still using it. And the majority of the deer were bedding in two areas. They seemed to be bedding in this area here, and in this area and this area, this section here, and then over up in here. So I had put a tree stand up in this draw, and this is pretty steep right here, and right down through the bottom of it there was a good deer trail coming up, and then the deer would go up through here and into this. But there was a more distinct trail right through this area right here. It's just a beat down trail, and there was some scrapes and rubs on it where the deer were coming from here and going through there. So I had a tree stand right in this area here, and Ron had a tree stand right in probably that tree right there, actually. I think it was the second day that we were hunting, and I was down in this draw, and it was about 15 minutes before dark, and my phone rang, and I'm like, well, he must have shot a deer. I mean, he might be texting me, but he wouldn't be calling me surely unless he got something. He's up here, and I answered the phone, and he said, I just shot a mountain lion. And I'm like, what are you talking about? A mountain lion in North Dakota? And you can't shoot a mountain lion. The only residents can draw for tags for a mountain lion. I don't think there's any mountain lions in this area. And he's like, it was a mountain lion. And I said, why did you shoot? And he goes, well, it was either him or me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, the mountain lion was following a fork-horned buck, and when it got in front of my tree, it stopped and looked right up at me and started to move towards me, and I thought it was going to come up and get me, so I shot it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what in the world are we going to do? I said, well, can you see your arrow, or is there any blood on your arrow? And he says, well, I don't want to get down because it just kind of circled around behind me, and I think it's still right behind me. And I said, well, it's 15 minutes before dark. You want to wait till dark and then get down? And he's like, well, good point. So he climbed down and he found his arrow, and fortunately he discovered that he had missed the mountain lion. And he said, we probably got a picture of it on the trail camera because it went right by that one scrape. I'll show you the trail camera pictures here. And the first picture shows the buck that stopped at this scrape. The second picture shows the mountain lion stopping at the scrape. And the third picture, a few minutes later, is a picture of Ron going to pull the card on the camera and get back to his truck. And he's got his arrows in one arm, and he's got his hunting knife in his teeth, and he is really rattled. And Ron's a pretty cool customer, but he got shook up from this episode. Anyway, the next year we went back, we walked out there in the snow and scouted, and then turned around and walked back, and there were mountain lion tracks in our boot tracks that were really, really fresh. So I've been out there hunting a couple times since. Ron is always packing when we hunt out there. But anyway, so there definitely was a mountain lion there, and he definitely took a shot at it. Unfortunately, he missed.